If you're a leader that likes to delegate, you're ineffective in that role if you don't learn the task, know how to do it yourself before you ever delegate it to someone else to do.
A podcast hosted by Joe Dietrich, Joe on the Mic, Leader Talk, tackles various leadership strategies that cover self development, self leadership, including spiritual and physical health of leaders. This podcast will feature guests ranging from military leaders, thought leaders, health and nutrition leaders, spiritual leaders, nonprofit leaders, and many more. Well, welcome everyone again. I just appreciate y'all coming on. We have a special broadcast today for Memorial Day, and I'm honored to have my former supervisor, still a mentor to me, and still a good friend, Command Sergeant Major retired Tom Aycock. We served together in Florida and Florida Army National Guard, and went on a lot of adventures, I would say, both during our service and our time together, and also off time. And Sergeant Major, I appreciate you coming on to this broadcast to talk about Memorial Day. And I love the reason why I asked you on is because I know you had during our time together. I just saw the appreciation of traditions that you showed, and you tried to teach as best as you can to the soldiers, and why tradition is so important, formations and celebrating and honors, especially when you asked me to come on the honor guard, and I saw how committed you were to the ceremony, and how it's supposed to honor our country and what we do in the military. So thank you for coming on.
Joe, thanks for having me, man. It has been a long time, and we definitely have to get together soon. It was let me jump on the bandwagon of appreciative comments. I appreciate the nice words you've given me, but for your audience, you got to know this is one of the best U.S. Army ever had that I'm speaking with today. So Joe, he says I was a supervisor, but I'm pretty sure most of the time he kept me straight and supervised me a lot of the time. And our time together on active duty, working for the Guard, was nothing but my pleasure. So thanks for having me, Joe.
Oh, thank you so much for the kind words. And yeah, it's hard for me to take appreciate it. And you are a good friend and mentor, even to this time. So in Memorial Day, a lot of people don't get it kind of confused with some other traditions and some other things, but history, and I'll just go quick into it. Memorial Day, but it was 3 years after the Civil War, back in May 5th of 1968. It was kind of declared Decorations Day, kind of what we talked about, and it was supposed to be observed on the 30th of May, and to honor those that have fallen in the war. Of course, the Civil War was one of the biggest wars. So for our listeners out there, with the traditions and the things that why is it important for them to remember or honor Memorial Day?
Hey, thanks again, Joe. Memorial Day. A lot of our public, well-meaning American people, patriots, they get a little confused. And I won't say that they're confused. I think the system itself kind of gets things confused. And allow me to jump back. We went from Decoration Day to Memorial Day, and you have to look at this from a perspective of the time of year that Memorial Day occurs as to what leads to some individuals' confusion. When I was in uniform, you were in uniform. On Memorial Day, we're probably out doing a parade or doing something to support our unit and show our public interaction. You get a lot of appreciation. Thank you for your service. It was always, kind of you wanted to educate people. And now I guess through the blessing of what is, the social media services that we have out there, you can kind of get the word out a little bit better. But a lot of people do confuse Memorial Day and treat it like Veterans Day.
Yep.
And there are distinct differences in those. Of course, Memorial Day being the date that we remember, not necessarily celebrate, but remember in memoriam of all the soldiers or all the service members that have passed, during their combat service. And while we don't want to, take away from anyone's patriotism or appreciation of active serving or veterans, um, that's why we have those different days to acknowledge that. So I feel it is important to educate people on the differences between Memorial Day and Veterans Day because they're oftentimes confused. You're absolutely right. A lot of what, and when I say that the timing of the actual holiday, a lot of things occur during the year, during the school year, where children are educated on what they mean. But what is going on at the last week of May? Is any kids in the United States still in school? No, usually they're all out. Sometime mid to middle, somewhere May, the schools are all graduating. They're going into their summer season, and come Memorial Day, they're not in school to understand the meaning of the true meaning of Memorial Day. It's
Yeah.
just not relatively taught in our school system. Whereas on Veterans Day, you'll see a lot of schools do, invite veterans in, and they have a flag folding or a flag retirement. They do a lot of education around Veterans Day, and thank God to those school systems that actually, practice that. But again, because Memorial Day falls in a time frame where schools are out, it's wholly up to parents and members of the community to educate our youth on the differences between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And I think that's where we kind of, as a country, fall short on making that distinct difference.
Yeah. No, I agree. And just a little more history. The 1966 Congress and President Lyndon B. Johnson, I think it's Lyndon B. Johnson, he declared that Waterloo, New York was the birthplace of Memorial Day. And then further, a lot of people don't know this, and I think it was, let's see, Memorial Day, yeah, was official. Like in 1971, it says Memorial Day was declared a national holiday by the Act of Congress, and some often still call it Decorations Day. And it was to be the last Monday of May, as where some other federal holidays might fall in. And so they actually took care of, and it's so wonderful to look at this and honor this tradition, I believe, because if we forget what we fought for and the lives that were taken for freedom, sometimes we can take for granted what we have. And I grew up that way partially. And do you have any comments on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, Joe, you're absolutely right. You're spot on. It is very easy in today's society to take for granted, you know, the freedoms that we have in this country. That people, service members gave the ultimate sacrifice to ensure that our freedoms were maintained. If they had not done that, if we had not had brave service members, give their life, we'd be speaking Japanese as a native tongue, or we'd be speaking, Nazi Germany. People kind of forget about that. Quite possibly moving into the global war on terrorism, we could all be under some radical Islamic, sect inside this country had we had not had brave service members go and unfortunately give the ultimate sacrifice to accomplish missions on behalf of the United States and to, make the attempt to keep our country free and our allies ultimately free. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
All right, folks, time for a sponsor break. Hey, guys, real quick, if you haven't heard about Anchor, It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain real quick. It's free. Did you hear what I said? It's free to make your podcast. They have creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast. They also have free music that you can use. Not to mention, they will distribute your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for you. All right. And you can also make money from the podcast with minimum listenership. Okay. They have everything that you need. Look, download the app, Anchor, like the anchor on a boat. And the website is anchor.fm. Anchor.fm. Get it. What are you waiting for? Start your podcast now. Do it. Anchor.fm or download it on the app. Talk to you later, guys. All right, back to our episode. I also, like we talked about earlier, to discuss also why it's important to talk about the fallen, because the ramifications of our fallen, brothers and sisters in arms is the ones that are left behind. And can you speak to about, some of the things that are about the survivors of the fallen and how important it is that not just to remember the fallen, but to think about those that are affected, that are left behind, basically.
Absolutely, Joe. A selfless service and sacrifice in the military is something that is expected of our service members. If you're told to take that hill, and we know that there are going to be catastrophic, numbers of deaths, but it's needed to be done. Every service member understands that they took an oath to follow orders and allegiance to the United States and the Constitution. And so it's kind of understood that some soldiers, while participating in a campaign or combat service, are going to die. However, the families of those service members, they didn't take a pledge. Other than the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America,
Yeah.
they did not, necessarily buy into that. A lot of families are formed after a service member. A young soldier joins at 17 years old and gets married, at age 20. Especially in our reserve or our guard, our reserve forces, there's not a lot of understanding of family members on what the ultimate price could be for that service member. So it's important on Memorial Day to not just remember those that fell in combat, our fallen warriors, but those families that were left behind, because I think that's a wound that is very difficult, if not impossible, to heal for the spouse or the children or the parents. That is something for them that goes on. And so, if you're gonna modify the intent of this holiday at all, I would say to include those family members. And yes, even there are psychological tolls that are taken in combat that soldiers and service members experience, that in some opinions and in some psychological realms could be considered even worse than death. So we have a lot of U.S. service members now, for being at war on the global war on terrorism for so many years now, that are being actively treated by the VA or other organizations for severe psychological issues, whether it's PTSD or traumatic brain injury or whatever the situation is. In some cases, that could be even more devastating to families and their service members than actual death. And I think it's important for there be awareness of that. I support certain organizations. If I can mention one of them, I support specifically is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. I did a lot of research into them. I think what they're doing is really good with their organization. But there are several other organizations that have service members and their families at the forefront of their charitable offerings, and it's important for people to seek that information out, seek out those organizations, and contribute, monetarily to those organizations, so that the families and the service members that are remaining that may have those type of situations are taken care of as well. I think we have that responsibility as an American citizen to make sure our folks are taken care of.
Definitely. And thank you for bringing up the organization, because we have to do our best, and that's why I consider myself a veteran advocate, and I know you're definitely a veteran advocate. That we in memoriam, we also to consider those that are left behind, and the Gold Star families and other organizations, and we were a part of an organization too that helped veterans with dealing with PTSD and other things like that, because they came back from war, experienced trauma, like you said, and the Swamp Apes was there to help them out. Because it's always good to say I support you and thank you for your service, but another way is to contribute to organizations like that, like the one you mentioned, or Folds of Honor, and other organizations that help out those that were left behind. Even though we know they're not left behind, but they feel left behind because their loved one was lost on the field of battle, or other maybe tragic, training incidents and things of that nature.
Joe, that's so important. And
hmm.
you it's more than just saying thank you. If you're going to educate the American people, you've got to do more than just say thank you, or you've got to do more than just go watch the parade and take the proper honors when the American flag passes by. It has to be to the next level. And if you're serious about showing appreciation to those that have fallen, or those families of that are suffering because of the fallen, or those service members that are suffering, as we spoke of just a minute ago, you've got to roll up your sleeves and get engaged in some of these organizations. You mentioned, Swamp Apes and the swampapes.org. And, you know, that's an organization, as well as some others, that are rolling up their sleeves and, getting their boots dirty, by actively taking care of situations like that.
And thank you for putting that point. I know you're very passionate about it, and I hope everyone feels that same passion too when they listen to this. There are too many people out there that don't understand their fault. Is just lack of education, and that's why we're having this discussion to educate everybody out there about the differences and what should be focused on during this time. And I don't want people to get lost in the sauce about all this. Hey, we got Memorial Day sale going on at Best Buy or whatever at some furniture store. It's much more than that, and that's why I'm glad you're on here talking about it, Sergeant Major. And I wanted to switch topics real quick, because talking about being in the military and things of that nature, and just for everybody out there, we've gone through some um, shakings up in leadership, and we saw last year, maybe the year before that, some shaking up in leadership in military organizations and stuff like that. But in your estimation, Sergeant Major, what does the leadership outlook from what you've seen from your foxhole for the future of our armed forces?
Sure, Joe. I just finished up my career. 38 years and 7 days. I think I did like 25 on active duty with the guard, and then the rest was traditional guard. 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year, that kind of thing. But in those, almost 4 decades of service, I saw a lot of positive leadership, and then I saw a little negative leadership thrown in there as well. I won't get too political, and my conservative leanings, but um, I think President Biden has a heart for the military. His son, whom I served alongside in Iraq, Bo Biden. It's just that you can't really focus on the president of the United States when you're talking about the future of leadership in the military. You really have to, you kind of discount that, because presidents come and presidents go,
Yeah,
politicians come, politicians go. It's important to keep an eye on Congress, but realistically, holistically, you have to look at the military service as kind of a separate entity that has to remain, you know, uh, anonymous in politics,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time has to have enough leadership strength to testify before Congress to say, no, we can't do that. We're not going to lean so much on the social satisfaction of the feelings of America, because that's not what the military is for. There are
Right.
plenty of other venues to, be politically correct. The military is not one. Now, that said, there are certain things that if you don't keep your eye on the ball, can get out of hand. Sexual misconduct in the military, abuses within the military, whether it's, harassment or, just whatever. Yeah, that stuff all has to be nipped in the bud, and strong leadership takes care of that if they know what they're doing. I think our current status of leadership in the military is strong. I've watched some video presentations from the current sergeant major of the Army, and I think he's right on par with some of his comments. And some things that I he's right. We have to get back to basics. The
Mm-hmm.
Army itself has just gone back to the old pink and greens uniform as their dress uniform, and that dates back to World War II. So
Yeah.
we're getting back to basics in that, getting back to roots with the new physical fitness program within the Army. I only speak of the Army because that's my roots. I think it's a lot of positive direction, getting back to basics, getting back to being physically fit to be prepared to well defend this country is a top priority in leadership. If leadership allows itself to be swayed by public opinion and what is considered political correctness, that's where I would take offense that we're not here for that. And
Right.
I do see some levels of leadership that lean more in that direction. I just watched something, whether it was right or wrong, on Facebook, a comparison of the advertisement for soldiers to join or citizens to join the Russian army versus an advertisement for U.S. citizens to join the United States military. And it was stark contrast. If there's any reality to it or whether it was true or not, it made the United States look like it was very politically correct and very pansy in its approach to joining the military, whereas the Russians were and destroy the enemy. And everybody was trying to make that analogy. Which would you join? you know, but I also believe there is a perception of that out there, and you've got to work to make sure that the perception, as we are putting forth our media affairs and public affairs, that they understand that the military, the U.S. military, means business, and they are ready to fight tonight in defense of this country, and no political correctness is going to stand in the way of that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with your assessment because, for a while there, I was getting a little worried, but then, I remembered all the personnel that I served with throughout the years and know their hearts for this country, know their hearts for protecting and defending our liberties and our neighbors. So, I was like, yeah, and I got to know some folks when I got out. I retired a year and 4 months ago, I want to say, and I've come across some young people that are wanting to join. I got to interview them and talk to them, and it made my heart feel good for this country because they were just the sharpest individuals and compassion and wanting to learn about leadership. And I was able to speak into one of those individuals. I'm not going to say their name. They want to be a ranger, and I was like, hey, go for it, man. Go for it. Go for the best. And know that leadership starts with not your position, but how you feel about the person next to you. How are you going to take care of them? How are you going to lead them in the right way? And if you come in with that mindset first, of service and how can you help your fellow individual to be the best that they can be, that then you can't go wrong if you got that attitude
Right.
in leadership, which is what we do. We serve our country for the betterment of the person next to us and our families.
Absolutely.
But Before we end this, because we could keep on going for almost 2 hours, I believe. What would you say? And I want to dig into your leadershipology over the years. You have decades, which is honorable service, in my opinion, and just our service together. What is a good leadership tip that you can share with our audience and those that it might be thinking about going into the military? But you know what, the leadership ologies and tips can be whether you're in the military or not. So, but what is one thing that you could share with us?
Well, Joe, it's going to sound a little cliche, but it's lead by
No, no.
example, Joe. It is
Uh,
lead by example. You know, I learned a long time ago that in my leadership style, I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to make sure that our unit was represented the best way possible. I wanted to make sure that those above me and those below me and my peers were proud of the work I did. I strived to get that kind of recognition, not so much in getting awards and stuff like that, but that they were like, hey, that Sergeant Aycock or that Private Aycock or Sergeant Major Aycock or Command Sergeant Major Aycock, he knows what he's doing and he's got it. So you have to learn the art of delegation,
yeah.
as a supervisor, as a leader. However, and I stand by this today, if you're a leader that likes to delegate, you're ineffective in that role if you don't learn the task, know how to do the task, know how to do it yourself before you ever delegate it to someone else to do. A lot of people are very good at delegation, but then when they're left to make decisions on their own or the people that they delegate to aren't available, they're a little incompetent because they never learned how to do it. They just knew how to delegate it out. And nobody likes somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. So again, lead by example. And that doesn't just apply to our military friends, that applies in civilian service. If you have an issue in your town or you want to promote more patriotism in your community, then lead by example. Get out there and conduct some courses. I can tell you, I've had some experience with some retired full birds in small communities that felt so strongly about patriotism, and they would volunteer their time to go into the schools on Veterans Day and give a presentation, or they would work through their resources through the co-op or the ag center or whatever. Every town has a little something different, and cities get even more, but maybe with the Rotary Club or something like that, to hold seminars on what is Blue Star Banner, what is Gold Star Banners. Even conducting, my wife was a member of a team very early in the onset of the global war on terrorism, where they got together, a group of community ladies got together and they sewed Gold and Blue Star banners for service member families that were serving. There's so much you can do in a community, but it's, as we see lately, volunteerism drops off as and patriotism wanes. When the towers fell, patriotism was at an all-time high. Flags flowing everywhere. Lean Greenwood singing on every radio station. And understandably, as decades go by, or a decade plus goes
Yeah.
by, that patriotism sometimes wanes. You don't hear in the news about what our service members are valiantly doing on a day-to-day basis, still on the global war on terrorism, as much as you did in the past. Well, it is up to each community member that wants to change or wants to bring awareness or wants to bring responsibility within their community to step up, to be a leader in reminding folks that, hey, we still have service members out there. Hey, we still need to learn the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day and conduct those seminars, or even on a platform like yours, Joe, putting the word out. If we educate only one person from this conversation, well, that's one more person that knows what we know and can move forward. And if everybody does their little steps, and so on and forth, just like the old commercial, then we can spread some of this knowledge and increase our knowledge base. Because as people say, knowledge is king.
Yes, yes.
I have to quote Kumo D on that, I believe.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, yeah. Got to have a little Kumo D sometime.
Hey,
Um, oh, guys, I hope you guys are learning a lot from this, and we're not trying to discourage anybody from saying, we support you in your service and stuff like that on Memorial Day. It's just, when us as military members, we kind of know the difference, but we will be polite anyway. Even if you come up to me and say, "Hey, thank you for your service on Memorial Day," I'll take it, and I will appreciate it, because that's what we do. Because we understand that you're just trying to show appreciation, so don't worry. We're not trying to condemn you in any way, shape, or form.
Joe, I
Um,
think what is a good idea
mhm.
on Memorial Day says, hey, if I'm wearing my Army hat and, whatever, or a veteran hat or whatever, and someone comes up and says, thank you for your service, you say, hey, thank you for your patriotism. And I appreciate your recognition of my service. But let me tell you about someone who gave all today,
Mhm.
who I'm thinking about today, because there is a difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And maybe have somebody in your hip pocket that you do a little research on and can educate that person on to be, hey, thanks for that distinction. I didn't know. And
Yeah,
that way you're acknowledging their appreciation of the military, which we don't want to diminish. And
right.
yet you're also turning it into an education or a teaching moment to help somebody out. And then maybe they go back and talk about it at dinner.
There we go. See, and that's why I say he's a great mentor, and he was a great supervisor. Because look, we can always get good nuggets from our mentors all the time, and I appreciate that, Sergeant Major. Um,
Hey, you're welcome to corn nuggets all day long.
and what was that organization again that you mentioned before that people can support?
Yeah, well, we talked about Tunnel for Towers. The CEO of Tunnel for Towers is actually the brother of a firefighter whose life was lost during the falling of the towers on 9/11.
Mm,
Great organization. They have off branched not just to first responders, but also to military members. Just a great organization. We talked also about Folds of Honor, which you brought up. It's an
yeah.
excellent organization, doing flags. Big issue. Memorial Day is a big day for Folds of Honor. And then we also are the organization we both are a member of is the swampapes.org,
Hmm.
working to use veterans actively remove the pythons, as you know,
Yep.
out of
Yep.
the Everglades ecosystem, but also doing restoration of trails, just anything in the ecosystem that needs to be done that they don't have the manpower for. Veterans are an excellent source of that manpower. They know how to negotiate in jungles and forests and everything else,
Oh
and they
yeah. Yeah.
understand, what a mission is and how to accomplish it. So, those three, just off the top of the head, are great
Yeah.
organizations to support.
Yeah. And here in Texas, there's Veterans Extreme Adventures. I interviewed their president, where he takes veterans out, and even family members, if that are experiencing trauma, or whatever, and they go out and hunt wild hog out here in Texas. Uh, I don't know if I'm gonna do that yet, but they also take them out fishing, maybe even just like hiking adventures, not necessarily hunting if they don't want to. But there's tons of organizations out there that if you do the research, you could find out how you can support survivors of fallen military members, even veterans that might need help. So, but thank you, Sergeant Major, for coming on board again, and just contributing and helping spread the word. Do you have any last words for our audience?
Joe, not to open that door, but listen, I'll keep it real brief. I do appreciate you bringing me in on your little mic world here. I'm honored to speak with you. I'm honored to share what I know, and not just in this venue. If anybody needs to get a hold of me, Joe knows how to get a hold of me. You send me an email or whatever, and we'll talk about things. And that's basically it. Again, thank you for the time, and appreciate you considering me.
And thank you guys for listening in on this important Memorial Day talk, and just to the importance of it. How can we support our military community? And guys, hope you have a blessed day. Just a good day to reflect and like you said, in memoriam on Memorial Day and what it means to maybe you, your family, or maybe your neighbors, and go over and see how you can support them, and just maybe just swap stories, just to talk about why we live in such a blessed country. Hey, everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment, send me a DM if you like this episode, and share it with your friends. Again, share with your friends. This is good leadership stuff that everybody needs to know. Visit my website at joedetrie.com to learn more about me. And if you want a free coaching call, hey, go to my website, sign up for a complimentary coaching call. I'd love to sit down with you and help you figure out how to make 2021 the best year ever. Talk to you later, guys.